One of the most common complaints is that American Express has ruined the Platinum card. Today, we're going to look at the complete history of the card, its evolution over the last 40 years, how Chase almost ate their lunch, but how they went from surviving back to thriving once again. It's a pretty interesting 40 years. Big favor, hit the like button to help with the algorithm, and if you know anyone else that might be interested, then share this with them. Setting the stage, American Express launched back in 1850. Initially though, they were not known for credit cards. Their core business was freight forwarding and mail services. They pivoted their business about 32 years later to money orders in 1882 and then added traveler's checks in 1891. Fast forward 60 years to 1958, that's when they launched their first credit card. Back then, it was a pretty new concept, but it did catch on among some people, especially more affluent people. The first card back then was the green card. Their core users were business people who were traveling often, and this card made it a lot easier to manage expenses. Also, it meant that they didn't have to carry a large amount of cash. 8 years later, in 1966, they launched the gold card. The main reason for it was that people were looking for a more premium version of the green, and the gold made sense. So you had higher limits, better travel benefits, more prestige and status, but also a higher annual fee. 20 years later, we saw the same playbook. In 1984, they launched version 1 of the Platinum. What the gold was to the green is what the Platinum was to the gold. People are looking to get better service and travel benefits, and it was targeted towards more frequent travelers. It was also their response to other high annual fee cards that were entering the market at the time. It didn't hurt that Amex had a cachet to it. Back then, the annual fee was $250. Obviously, a dollar was worth a lot more back then, so if we adjust it for inflation, it's worth about $750 in today's dollars, which is pretty much the range that we're currently in. The perks back then included access to airline lounges, helped with flight upgrades, hotel upgrades, and they also had a 24-hour concierge. Over the next 20 years, they made a lot of incremental improvements. A lot of it around points earning, additional benefits like car rental status, and also purchase protection. One of the benefits that we still see today is Fine Hotels and Resorts, which was launched in 1999. I'm not sure about the perks back then, but right now, it includes 12 p.m. check-in and 1 level room upgrade when available, daily breakfast for 2, $100 experience credit, and guaranteed 4 p.m. late checkout. Last one being pretty key because other programs like Virtuoso are not guaranteed. In 2004, we saw an annual fee increase to $300. In today's dollars, about $500. I don't have evidence for this, but I have a theory that they probably want to increase annual fees in 2000 or 2001. The dot-com crash in March of 2000 didn't really help, and it's hard to raise annual fees when the stock market is in the gutter. The recovery didn't happen until 2003. Okay, but why would I think that? It's because 1 year later in 2005, they did another fee increase, this time to $395, which is about $631 today. This is when they launched by invitation only, which has now been renamed Premium Events Collection. This is for Platinum card members, and the idea is that it's customized and not available to the general public. I also do see them pushing more into this in the future, but we'll get into that. A year later, in 2005, they launched the International Airline Program. The main draw is that it offers 20% off fares, but generally full-class fares. So they do have 8 partners here, and it works for International First, Business, and Premium Economy. It can definitely be hit or miss depending on your budget, but worth a check if you are paying out of pocket. So that's right now, but back then, I think it was a bit better. So apparently back then they had a feature where you could buy one and get one, but only on certain airline tickets. Probably full fare ones, but still nice. Probably similar to what we currently have with the Delta Platinum and Delta Reserve cards. The crazy part is that from inception until the next annual fee increase, they didn't really have credits. It meant that you had nothing to soften the blow, and you were pretty much paying $500 to $700 in today's dollars for the benefits. That's a pretty stark contrast to what it is right now, where you do have a ton of credits, and even if you don't value some of them, you're probably going to get value from other ones. For example, if you or your player 2 likes to shop at Saks, take Ubers, stay at hotels, especially Vegas, use streaming services like Disney+, and you fly Southwest, United, or Delta, or other airlines where the airline fee credit is easier to use, you're probably going to break even from the annual fee. I would still recommend playing with the calculator, and it should pop up if you Google Ask Sebi Platinum worth it. Also, if you are going for the Platinum, I check Card Match to see if you have an elevated offer. This is how a lot of people get the best offers for cards like the Gold and the Platinum. To me, well worth 60 seconds. With all of that said, if you want to learn more about the Platinum or any other American Express card and you want to support the channel, we do have links on the website, asksebi.com, and also down below in the description box. Make sure the links are competitive and that the cards make sense for you, but otherwise it is a huge way to support the channel, so thank you guys in advance. Okay, so from 1984 to 2010, you were paying for benefits. In 2011, all of this changed. This is probably the first step of the Platinum card becoming what it is today. $450 annual fee, which is about $624 today. They finally did add a credit though, and you get up to $200 for airline incidentals. The same $200 we have today. 2 years later, in 2013, they launched their first Centurion Lounge. The idea being that people that were traveling wanted a place to relax and get work done. The first one being in Vegas. Interestingly enough, it's still in the same spot, but they have since expanded it. The second one that opened soon afterwards was Dallas-Fort Worth. In 2014, they added the two coasts, SFO San Francisco and LGA New York LaGuardia. 2015, we saw two other corners being connected, those being Miami on the bottom right and Seattle on the top left. As you can tell, lounge access was the core focus. In 2016, the Chase Sapphire launched with a lot of success. It was considered the first viral credit card and the one that people filmed unboxing videos for. A lot of people were leaving American Express for Chase. They were pretty much bleeding card members, especially for their core customer demographics. An Amex card says you're rich, but this Chase Sapphire Reserve says that you're interesting. It's a credit card that mystifyingly has suddenly become cool. Chase succeeded by essentially copying American Express's playbook and chasing the up-and-coming elites. The problem was that by the math, by the numbers, the Chase Sapphire Reserve made more sense. The Platinum could make sense if you were a frequent flyer, but you had to be out of an airport with a Centurion Lounge. The Platinum could only do layups and dunks, while the Chase Sapphire Reserve can do that as well, but also pull from 3 and get you 3x back from dining. One of American Express's top executives were deeply paranoid about these types of competitive assaults on their customer base. With that, Amex announced a bunch of card member perks that were targeted towards Chase. This brings us to 2017, V5. In a lot of ways, it feels like a hard counter. With V4, you had a $450 annual fee, but up to 200 in credits, so the effective annual fee was $250. The V1 of the Chase Sapphire Reserve was $450, minus up to $300, so $150 effective annual fee. By the numbers, Chase being an easier recommendation. With V5, the annual fee jumped to $550, about $700 in today's dollars. They also added a bunch of credits, up to $200 for Uber, $15 per month, and $35 in December. Also up to $100 for Saks, $50 for January to June, and $50 for July to December. Now, if we compare the cards, $550 annual fee minus up to 500 in credits is a $50 effective annual fee. On paper, the card is comparably better. To be fair, there was a lot of pushback, Uber and Saks being big issues, especially for people in suburbs who have their own car and who don't use Uber and don't really want to use Uber Eats. I think people were okay with Saks, but it can be a bit annoying. For business purposes though, it did make sense. Amex, like all credit card companies, are desperately looking for new customers every year and preferably ones with decades of spending ahead of them. The old model that was focused on customer service wasn't working as well. You don't really need travel agents or concierges if you have Priceline and Yelp. So even though some people hated the new credits, it made sense for a lot of other people, and it turned it from a one-year tester into something worth keeping. And to be fair, I'm in that demographic where it started to make more sense. Apparently, I wasn't the only one, and it worked. Since then, they've doubled down on this strategy. In 2021, they launched a card as we know it today. Inflation adjusted, it's actually a bit more expensive than you would think. $695, which is about $800 today. Technically the highest since 1984 if you adjust for inflation. To be fair though, there are a lot of credits. And they market this fact pretty aggressively with benefits across travel, entertainment, and dining. For me and for a lot of other people, it's the old card, plus hotels, and also digital streaming. Even though there are perks like Walmart Plus, a lot of people don't really value them. If anything, that's the point of this iteration, that you can pick and choose your spots. You don't have to use all 1,500, you only need to use enough for you to feel like you're getting value for that annual fee. This also means that you can add new customers that otherwise wouldn't have gotten the card. So for example, that person that maybe doesn't travel as much, but who already paid for Equinox. We're probably going to see them tripling down on this and adding features and credits that both you and I are not going to use or like. And that's fine because it can still make sense. Amex's big bet is unsurprisingly on millennials and Gen Z. 60% of new accounts from Amex are by these two generations. It also helps that these two groups are accounting for 32% of US credit card spend. The Gold and the Platinum doing heavy lifting for acquisition. As much as people hate the coupon book, it's working. They're adding a lot of new customers, 75% of new accounts are by these younger spenders for the Gold and the Platinum cards, and they're also the big spending affluent type that doesn't seem to be phased by inflation. Run the numbers for yourself, but I think you'd be surprised at how well the current iteration stacks up against the prior ones. Again, if you want to learn about cards, we have links on the website, asksabby.com, and down below in the description box. If you made it to this point, leave a red admission ticket emoji in the comments down below, which is the closest to a coupon book thing I could find, and I'll try to heart it and also respond. 3 questions: what's your favorite version of the Platinum card? What's your favorite feature? And also, what other features do you see them adding for the next version? Let me and everyone else know in the comments down below. Big favorite, thumbs up, share this with a friend, consider subscribing, but otherwise hope you liked it. See you next time.